All right, you're not David Jones. Daniel Gallen, Bob Flounders. Dave is back home in the Downingtown area. But we got a lot to talk about. Penn State finishes its regular season with a 30-27 loss in the snow, Daniel. They had a lot of opportunities, actually took the lead in the third quarter. But they really just had too many mistakes in all three phases of the game in the snow against the Michigan State team that was not really 100%. They were dealing with the flu. I don't think Kenneth Walker was 100%. A couple guys didn't play for them, but they still made all the big plays when they needed to.
Yeah, for all the talk about the Michigan State being shorthanded,
Yeah.
the guys who weren't healthy, couldn't really tell by the way that you watched them today. Jaden Reed made the big jump ball, fourth down catch.
Wow.
Kenneth Walker was hard to bring down. The defense made the stops that they needed to,
Mhm.
got Penn State off the field in those big spots, and so, it didn't look like, Michigan State didn't look like the shorthanded team today.
For me, I'll talk about the defense in a little bit because I really thought that was maybe the most disappointing aspect of Penn State's play today. But, special teams, it's a tight game, a one-possession game. Penn State's been in a ton of one-possession games that they've lost this year other than the Ohio State game. Jordan Stout misses a field goal in the final minute of the first half. I think it was 27 yards. He missed an extra point. It's a tight game. They make some mistakes there. Other than really Jahan Dotson on the offensive side, it's been the same story. Who can Penn State consistently count on? He had another big day, but it just wasn't enough. Michigan State was balanced on offense. But the defense, to me, Daniel, I was I was disappointed in what I saw from them. They've been so good in the red zone this year. Michigan State had 5 red zone possessions. They scored on all 5, 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
That was a big story. The defense was on the hook for a 99-yard touchdown drive, I think, in the first quarter. Couldn't get off the field, and you mentioned it. That 4th and 15, you cannot give up a touchdown pass on 4th and 15. Michigan State's kicker was hurt. They had to go for it. I mean, there's no way you can let them score there. They did. I was really disappointed in the defense, but there were issues, in all 3 phases.
Yeah, that 4th and 15 play, it just looked like a play where Michigan State was almost trying to get off the field. It was throw it up, just kind of see what happens. Maybe you get a penalty, maybe you get something, but the fact that they went with kind of that play, it wasn't something that was, okay, to the sticks, let's get some guys. It was just, all right, we're going to throw it up, see if our guy beats you. If he doesn't, our defense has been playing well, so they could afford to take a shot like that. And I thought that was just very indicative of kind of how this game went, how the flow of the game went. In addition to the red zone, I mean, Michigan State, 9 of 18 on third down, 3 or 4 on fourth down. Penn State just couldn't get off the field. And when you can't get off the field, doesn't matter if your punter pins them at the 1, doesn't matter if all those punts are inside the 10. It's kind of everything has to be working in tandem in order to beat a team like this Michigan State team.
Daniel, I just don't think the fan base is very happy on the way that the season closed out. A couple of days ago, James Franklin signs what's essentially an extension that could keep him at Penn State for a long time. This is a team that started 5-0. They closed 2-5 with wins over Maryland, and Rutgers. They always beat Rutgers, even in bad years. And that Maryland game was a game with like 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they pulled away. It was actually closer than the final score. It's just been a disappointing close to a year because there's some talented players, Daniel, on this team. But to me, I know I talked about the defense and the letdown, but the offensive line, I think, for the entire season, probably ranks for me as the biggest disappointment. They just got pushed around, and they got pushed around again today by Michigan. Michigan State's defense had a lot of sacks come in, but they don't have a lot of flashy players or guys with a lot of sacks. But in the second half, I just thought they pushed Penn State's offensive line around. They couldn't convert a 4th and 1 inside the 20, which I thought was very costly. But just too much pressure on Sean Clifford, and Walker didn't play. But Sean Clifford said after the game that he feels like the team's better than the record. I'm not sure that's the case. I just think that they don't know how to really win close games, and they don't have enough players that can make plays in close games.
The better than their record refrain was pretty common, but when you look at how these games went too, they lose these close games, but they weren't really fluky losses either.
Right.
I mean, maybe you could call Illinois a fluky loss because of all the overtimes, but these close games, I mean, there wasn't like a fluke play, some weird bounce or whatever. It was just the other team made one more play than they needed to. But you go back to the offensive line, and Clifford being under pressure, not being able to get a push, this was the type of game where you just needed to give Clifford a half second more than he'd been getting. The Michigan State pass defense is not good. It was the worst in the nation by 33 yards. I think it was at some point early in the fourth quarter, I looked at it, and Clifford had only thrown 23 times, and it was like, you need to be throwing a lot more than this. And then we saw, obviously, that last drive, Michigan State, pulled back a little bit, but you're moving the ball through the air.
Hit the over. I was not happy about that, but sure.
I had the under, I think, too. But Dotson got moving. It was just kind of, you just needed to see a little bit more attacking that weakness, and it starts up front.
James Franklin would never admit it. The players won't admit it. Michigan State wanted this game more. You could just tell they were embarrassed by Ohio State, and it was reflective in the point spread. A game opened with Penn State favored. It was actually up to like 5 points at kickoff. We didn't know who was going to be healthy for Michigan State. In the second half, they were the fresher team. They wanted it more. They made all the big plays. Just a very, last year Penn State starts 0-5. They win the last 4 games, so they kind of finish on a positive note. It kind of went in reverse this year, and going into the bowl game, you just wonder about the morale of this team. You wonder who's coming back. You wonder who's going to leave. And you just wonder about the assistant coaches, because I think some people that oversaw units that really, did not get the job done might be worried about employment in State College in 2022. We'll have to see. But it was just a disappointing end to a season. It started in Iowa when they couldn't hold a 17-3 lead, and it just that was just the start of a very frustrating finish, I think, for this team.
Yeah, I feel like we keep bringing up that hit that Sean Clifford takes. That's kind of the pivot point for this year, and now we're here in the snow. It just kind of did not really see things go.
I'm not sure how we're getting home. We're going to see about that. We might be delayed. Penn State might be delayed, but this was the first snow game for a lot of the Penn State players, and it just was a very, very unsatisfying finish, I think, for Penn State. You wonder about the morale of the team. You wonder about, some of the players that have some decisions to make. And I think James Franklin's got some decisions to make about his coaching staff.
It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks leading up to the bowl and a couple of weeks after the bowl, I think.
All right, that's it from here. We'll be back. Who knows when we're going to be back? Who knows when we'll get to talk to Penn State's players and coaches again? But they were not very happy after this one. But the better team won the game.